What's going on, people? It's Kid Shorty Gaming Nation in the building. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We're going live tonight at 10 p.m. To discuss a very important topic. I'm going to wait for a bit so people can jump into the show and get it started from there. Give me a moment here. Remember when you enter the show, like, share, subscribe to the chat room. Um, how would you become the big dog in these spaces? Because, like I said before, my mission is to influence the culture in a positive direction, or leave the culture something. You know what's so funny to me, right? Is that when it comes to black men and us, in the history of us here in America, since slavery, freeing ourselves from slavery, trying to figure out who we are, what our identity is after slavery, trying to pick up the pieces, trying to fight, dying, trying to maintain the structure of a community, trying to break the stereotypes. Uh, and then we're part of a culture called Black people, whether you're Caribbean Black, Black American, especially in the African diaspora. The culture that we have, give me one moment. Let me go use the bathroom and I'll be right back. Give me one moment. Let me do this right quick. Be right back. All right, and we're back. Um, yeah. So, when it comes to black men and our identities, you know, I think with black men, we've tried to fit in so many boxes that benefits everybody else, but we really never sat down with ourselves as black men individuals and say, yo, what is the best direction for ourselves and where we want to go? Like, and at the same time, it's like for black men, right? We gotta balance being a man for everybody else and balance being a man for ourselves. What do I mean by that? Because at the end of the day, as black men, our duty as men, right? Our job is to create law, order, and structure into a society. It's to everywhere we go as a man, can we bring law, order, balance, and peace to that environment? Because that's what it is to be a man. It's the action part, right? It's moving. Our job is to move the world forward as men first. Before we are black men first, we are men. We are men, right? Before whatever racial structure, whatever racial ideology that defines the skin hue, before we get put into a category, we're human beings, but our function is a man. And in that essence, as men, even from hunter gatherer stages, our job was to move the culture, move the world. Like Thor's hammer, right? Mjolnir, right? Mjolnir is an analogy, in my opinion, for man, right? Thor's hammer has the ability to destroy, resurrect, give life, take away life. At one point in one of the comics, Midgard didn't have, or Earth, it didn't have a heaven or a hell for people to go to when they died. So what Thor had to do is he had to go create a heaven and a hell, right? If you read the creation story in the Bible, in Genesis, that's what God did. And men, we're kind of a microcosm. Not that we are God Himself, but we carry those abilities. Like we're His like second in command. Like we're his tool or instruments. And our job as men is to forge the world. You understand? Um, Whatever form or image that may take. So as black men, it's like we have no other option but to be that. But it's like we have to, at the same time, balance an identity for ourselves and create a. So I'm going to write a book based on that. You know, sovereign masculinity versus your performative masculinity, and how to balance those tools to be an effective male moving forward. You know, to be your own unique individual. While you have your own personal moral compass, you're still performing, doing your duty to the community and the world. But I think for black men, we haven't because we're in 2025 and we're just not in a space where, especially in America, right? And then you could call the Caribbean too, right? Um, we're now in a space where we don't have to perform like we did in the 80s and the 90s, according to what the culture is saying. We have to gang bang, thug, sell dope, any of that bullshit. Uh, we don't have to deal with the threat of racism that we dealt with. We didn't have to deal with the threat from each other that we dealt with. We might have to do that in a little bit today, but like how we interact with each other's black men, brother to brother, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not as heavy as it was. So I guess now, because we're in a space where black men are making more money, right? They're making money legal ways. When I say legal, I'm talking about trade, construction. I went to go to a job fair yesterday for construction workers. There are plenty of black men looking for work, looking for job, had their certifications, had their OSHA 30s, had their apprenticeship, everything. They went there. Plenty of black men lined up from the block out in Harlem on 125th Street, looking for work. All qualified brothers. So that tells me that black men give a fuck about, you know, getting to that paper, doing something constructive and making that money, right? Which is good. But I think now that we are in a more, I want to say, safer environment, it's like now we have to think about, how do we think for ourselves? How do we think about how do we perform for us? How do we, why am I getting this job and how does this benefit me? Which is it's an amazing thing if you look at it in a positive light. And it could be a negative thing because now you have to, the reason why I say it could be a negative thing, because now you have to take that mask that Black culture tells you have to be and wear every day, pick up that mask and break it into pieces. The best part about that now is you get to look within and design and create who you want to be, and then be confident in who you want to be as a straight Black male, masculine Black male, not an LGBT Black male, but a masculine Black male. And the best part about that is that you get the opportunity to see yourself and dig deep into what's not you, what's for you, what's not for you, right? You're not moved by a doctrine of religion. You're not moved by a doctrine of groups or ideologies. Even though you can review those ideologies, you can review those doctrines, you can review the external world, the mirror that you're looking into, and you can pick and choose what fits for you, what doesn't fit for you. I don't want to say you got to do that in a responsible way, right? You can't be destructive with your identity. You can't be harmful to others, and you can't be harmful to yourself, right? So that's the balance. It's like Black men have to forge that balance now in 2025, moving forward, and evolve into a new type of man. And when I say a new type of man, I'm talking about a sovereign man, not an LGBT man based on bullshit, not a new age type of man like the whole shower caps and bonnet type of brothers. I'm talking about a straight Black masculine man off the structure of patriarchal structure, objective masculinity, right? But he's evolving into his own personal compass, his own unique version of himself, And I'm hoping Black men can get to that stage, and I'm hoping I can play a part to push in that stage, right? Because I got to do that for myself. So let's get into the topic to today. The dangers of women's promiscuity, right? Boy, the world we live in, where somehow the 304s are the promiscuous women, have promiscuous women, believing like they're at the top of the food chain, and then you got women who, like, some for instance, you got an OnlyFans chick, you got an Instagram model, they may have lived that lifestyle or whatever. Then they come to the internet crying and complaining about, there's women there who are, promiscuous, but you just don't know it. Which they have a point, but a lot of times it's a lot of Instagram thoughts and baddies, as you would claim, that want to come back now to the regular world and get access to regular dudes. And that's not how it works. Literally, if you're in the Victorian era, you wouldn't even have the opportunity to have a voice. But, because of modern technology, YouTube, and social media, they could give themselves a voice. You know what I'm saying? So, it's like the weakest of the women, low-tier women, want access to the best type of shit, right? And I don't knock OnlyFans models. I don't knock them type of women for making their money. It's a capitalist society that I believe in. So I don't disagree with them making their money. My only problem is when they step out their place. You know what I'm saying? And my issue with the dudes who validate those women that step out their place. Like if I try to put one of the women in their place, it's always some simp ass nigga that want to tell me I'm insecure. Nigga, just say you like 304s. And I'm gonna make a video about that, talking about the different social hierarchies of men that are clashing on the internet over how women should be in society and operate in society. Because it's a very important insight so that men can understand where we're going. And yes, I'm going to write books about these things. I'm going to write books on a lot of the issues I see, create literature out there to, to be as a blueprint or as something for people in the future to look at, to see what went wrong in current day society, so that if they rebuild off of this shit that after it destroys, they understand, or they know what to avoid and not to reproduce or redo. You know what I'm saying? So we'll write a couple of books about these things and produce them. This is very important for y'all to like, share, subscribe to the channel, donate to the channel, so I can produce these things for not just the men but for the women too, right? For good people, for society and stuff. Like, this is my way of playing my part in society and keeping civilization going and intact. All right. So yeah, like, but yeah, let's get into it. I'm going to show some videos too. I will be showing some videos. So let me share this. Oh. No, I just want to make this point. You see the men that don't like other men who don't value promiscuous women as far as in a relationship. These are the men that are part of the social hierarchy called players, pimps, hustlers, doughboys, pookies, ray-rays, right? Those men value promiscuous women. So now they bash on traditional men because when we put up that boundary, those women can't gain the benefit of both worlds. They can't get the benefit of being unqualified while dealing with the pookie bad boy or Ray Ray, but now they lose access to lying to the traditional nigga and getting access to the traditional nigga. So now when the traditional dude is saying, I don't date or deal with promiscuous women, he's putting up a boundary to protect himself, not necessarily control or dictate to the women. But there's just that the player Mac niggas, they don't like that, because now the women that they typically engage with are going to probably say, oh shit, if I do this, I won't get that. So they're not going to do the promiscuous route, which is what I've been saying since my inception here on this channel, is what the player Mac niggas don't get the benefit from. So that's what it really is. It's just that they masking it behind articulated bullshit, bibble babble. But anyway, let's get into it. The dangers of promiscuous women, right? OnlyFans models as a visible case study. What I'm describing is essentially a visible subset of women who openly participate in sexual commerce, OnlyFans, cam modeling, etc. Their claim to honesty about body count is technically true. The content she produces is public, so men can observe her sexual history on screen. However, I'm correct. We can't account for off-camera activity. Her visible honesty doesn't capture all sexual behavior. Implication. Even in this highly transparent subculture, absolute vetting is impossible. Men are still limited in a fully knowing a woman's sexual history or behavior patterns. Now, the truth, right? Yeah, I want to talk about red pill. This is let me hit you niggas in the face. Facts. The fact of the matter is, we are not in the Victorian era. So you're not going to really know these women's sexual history. And they're not going to be honest and tell you. That's the facts, right? That's the cold hard truth that it got to punch out niggas in the face. Right? You say you want to be rap, but at the same time, you still don't have to deal with a woman that's out here and she's being a whole 304, or she's out here just moving like a whole vermin, sex vermin. I don't care what the fuck she look like, right? You still don't have to deal with that, because obviously, when majority of these women engage in this promiscuous lifestyle, and I'm not talking about you outliers out there that say nothing happens to you. Obviously, there's something that they pick up, some kind of spirit, demons, or whatever they pick up that affects them. So obviously, they're not a good woman that's going to be beneficial to a traditional guy, right? But we have to get to that reality that most of your women out here are fucking around. The question is, she way out of line. The question is, who has she been fucking with? Has she been consistently fucking with, or like you say her body count came from, she was looking for a relationship. Say she was in a relationship 1 year with a guy, and then she took a break. She was in another relationship 2 years. She's like one of those serial monogamous type of chicks, right? Or she's only having sex with one partner, and only if she's getting into a relationship with that type of woman. That type of chick with that kind of get a body count from that, I don't have an issue with that, right? Because that shows that she was trying to get into a relationship. It just didn't work out. As opposed to now, OnlyFans model, Instagram thought, and the chick I described earlier, I think that's the average type of woman, right? Like your body count is not 50. Your body count maybe like 15, 20. You understand? Or maybe like 10, 8. You know what I'm saying? But they're not in the category of like an escort, Instagram model where they get flown out to Dubai and getting shitted on, right? And two, what a lot of women got to understand is that a lot of women are crazy even if they don't have a big body count. That's a fact too. This is what a lot of you red pill niggas, y'all are missing about that, right? A lot of things can be true at the same time. A woman, she cannot have a big body count, but what else is to her pie? She may not be a good woman still. She may not know how to cook, clean. She may be a bitch. She may be crazy. She may be fucking insane. She can be overall a bad woman. The only thing good about her is that she's a virgin or she got 10 bodies, but she can be a bitch. But she could just be bad at a relationship. Maybe she just doesn't. Maybe she could be a whole feminist. That's probably the reason why she don't got a body count. She could be one of those raging feminists that even a porn star dude would have touched with his dick. So a lot of these things they got to take into consideration. Like, and this is a good thing, right? Because now, if you're a man and you're saying, well, beyond a woman's looks and her sexual past, she still has to perform here and here and here and here and here and here. That means that women now have to really compete to get the best type of guy, which that's a good thing. But the reality of the situation is that for most men in their environment, because of hookup culture, right? And we're not going to argue over who played in that culture, who didn't play in the culture, right? Because a lot of you men from the white manosphere that was pickup artists, and a lot of black men in our culture who are playing big player, we have a part to play in how the dating market is, right? The women have a bigger part because they gave access to dudes they shouldn't be given access to, but everybody played a part in the tainted dating pool that we're in. Whether it be the player Mac niggas who play a part into it, which is probably why they're shaming you regular niggas into to keep engaged in it because it benefits them. And I've broken that down 7 ways through Sunday. But you have to get to that reality that most of the women out here are sexually active. They may not be sexually active in the context of a 304 or a whore or escort bitch or whatever you want to call it, but they're active out here. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? Now, the question is, are they active out here with good, stable dudes, or they out there being stupid? Like in black culture, you got black women out here giving out, sharing out boxes of the same group of niggas. They come to complain to regular niggas to give them a grace when that got nothing to do with us. And you gotta stop that shit when it comes to black men talking about regular niggas don't get boxed. Regular niggas can get boxed. You feel me? Regular niggas can get access to black women. I think that the argument is that whether that black woman wants to stay with him, you know what I'm saying, or whether that black woman can be in a relationship with him or wants to be in a relationship with him. I think that's the core of the argument, right? I don't think it's that regular brothers can't find black women to give them box. I think it's regular brothers can't find black women to get into a relationship with, a quality relationship with. And I think it's not even the brothers' fault. I think it's I don't not even a think at this point. I know it's black women. You know, at first I used to think that the shit that I grew up seeing in the East New York, Brooklyn, was just for us hood niggas when I was there. And I'm not a street nigga. I'm never gangbanged a day in my life. But I'm from the block. I seen certain shit. I'm from East New York, Brooklyn. My pops live around Pink House and Projects. I was born in Brookdale Hospital, right? You go to Linden Boulevard. You know what I'm saying? You see the hospital right there, Brookdale Hospital, right? Used to live on the last stop on the A train between Glenmore and Liberty Avenue. So I'm from it. Seen it, had homies in it. I just never engaged in the gangbanging and street nigga shit. You understand? But for what it's worth, I thought that was just for there. I didn't think that it was on a grand scale outside of that bubble called East New York, Brooklyn, or Queensbridge, or 125th Street, Harlem, or Rosedale, Merrick Boulevard, or Laurelton, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Even in Cambridge Heights, you think that it'd be better quality black women in Cambridge Heights, but there are hoes there too. Right? So, you know, you got to come to that reality, fellas, that most women out here are going to be redeemed 304s. That's especially in our culture. That's a fact you're gonna have to deal with. The fact of reality you're gonna have to deal with. Now let's get to it. Right? Invisible. Promiscuity in the general dating pool. I highlighted an important point. Women who appear ordinary, corporate job, college, or college. There's some shit I've seen in college. Or regular social life can also engage in 304 type promiscuity without public visibility. This statistically supported in the sense that surveys and research on sexual behavior show many women engage in casual sex, sometimes secretly. Implications. The problem isn't only fans of visible sex work, it's the inability to verify sexual history or risk factor among the broader dating population. Men are at informational disadvantage. Right? Impact on traditional family formation. So this is the big issue in Black culture. One of the reasons why we're not progressing is because we're not able to create a nuclear patriarchal structured family. Because now, not only do I have to date multiple Black women, hundreds of Black women for me to find the one good or decent, malleable Black woman, I now have to vet for her for like 5-10 years to see if she's a good chick. That's how bad it is. Right? Because you hold Black men to a high accountable standard now, and you don't hold Black women to a standard, and you put all the work on that brother to now vet, and then there's nothing being put on the Black women to compete for the best type of brother. Now he has to vet multiple women, and he's going to run up into multiple problems, especially if he has a standard. And he's going to reject multiple women before he finds a good one. And even when he finds a good, valuable one, there's still a lot of work he has to do to mold a lot of the bullshit culture or programming that's in her brain to build her up into the best type of woman that he needs. That's a lot of work. On top of building himself. So, with sexual behavior being I don't know how to say this word. I know what it means. Being upkeep and a culture that increasingly normalizes casual sex for women, risk to family formation increases, right? Higher likelihood of reproductive unpredictability, pregnancy, abortion. Relationship instability, potential emotional or health complications. Observation, even women who appear safe may carry hidden risk factors. So traditional men are increasingly forced to either vet aggressively, meaning you have to like vet, like you like the like you have to vet like ironclad. You understand? Like be able to reject a bitch quick. Adjust expectations about trust, stability, and partners. So like you have to now adjust your standards or expectations according to the dating market. Or you could go against the grain and say, fuck that, and go to a different dating pool entirely, which a lot of black men are ashamed from doing. A lot of black men can't even increase his dating options because if black men culturally are allowed, were socially accepted into dating the snow bunnies, and I'm a snow bunny lover, right? I love snow bunnies, right? But to be honest with you, I'm probably going to pick a black woman to be in a relationship with, but I still love snow bunnies. I'm not afraid to dip in that pool. I'm not afraid to date a Latino. I'm not afraid to date an Asian chick. But most black men, they haven't broken that social cultural barrier. As far as when it comes to Gen X and maybe the boomers, maybe that's been broken with the Gen Z black brothers. Because you see more Gen Z, they date interracially now too, or more often. But in general, black men have not broken that barrier. So because we haven't increased our dating options, the type of woman we want to date, is like we're locking ourselves out the game or pool of the best type of woman to deal with, right? Because at the end of the day, if I dated Becky and I'm a patriarch, she's following up under my authority as a man. She's following me. And whatever kids we produce belongs to my last name and my dynasty. So she's in a black man's house, having children for a black man. Those kids are black. But a lot of black men don't think patriarchal. So, social implications. If the above dynamics are widespread, society may experience delayed family formation, which is probably a Marxist tactic, by the way. Right? This is why Marxism has done this. Delayed family formation. Men may hesitate to commit, women may struggle to find stable partners. Low birth rates in traditional household, which is already visible in modern Western societies, erosion of traditional family norms, the framework of monogamy and predictable family roles became harder to sustain. This is not just theoretical. The trends match what sociologists and demographers observe. Increased single motherhood, high abortion rates, decline in marriage rates, more cohabitation without formal marriage. Everything that's going on in our society today. Right? Objective truth. Men cannot fully know a woman's sexual history or risk profile from her parents, job, or social conduct. Transparency is rare outside of visible sex work. Strategic takeaway for traditional men. Accept risk. No vetting is perfect. Uncertainty is unavoidable. Vet where possible. Reputation, community knowledge, and consistent patterns of behavior are your strongest indicators, right? Set boundaries. Decide what level of risk is acceptable. Multiple sex partners, financial independency, lifestyle choices. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of shit that us men have to come to grips with. Adjust strategy. The dating pool today may not support traditional family formation without careful selection and higher standards, which men are not allowed. They can set standards for themselves, but they're not allowed to set standards for the women. Right. I don't even think men can set standards for themselves because anytime a man sets a standard for himself that says, I don't fuck with promiscuous bitches, everybody loses shits their bricks. Society at large may continue trending towards casual sex culture, which creates structural friction for traditional family formation. This is the reality that traditional men must recognize if they want to maintain their principles. But they keep trying to gaslight you men from recognizing this. Core driver. Breakdown of sexual transparency and responsibility. Historically, traditional societies function around predictable sexual and family norms. Women's sexual behavior was largely constrained by social norms. Men's investment in offspring was secure. Today, with widespread promiscuity, hidden sexual histories, and normalized sex, casual sex, that predictability disappears. Men cannot reliably determine a partner's sexual or reproductive risks. This uncertainty undermines the foundation of long-term family structures. All right, so that was a main reason why the Victorian age was there. It was to get men to invest into proper women, and to get women to tame their sexual nature, to create a stable society. Right? Hold on, let me check out something right quick. All right. Uh, all right. So let's get back to it. All right. My fault. Right. So that was the whole point of the Victorian era. The Victorian era of standards was to contain the already destructive nature of men and women, and to make them a functional, monogamous, patriarchal, nuclear family custodial, to stabilize society. Right? Marriage decline. Fewer men and women entering stable unions. Birth rate shift. Children born outside of stable households often have less economic and emotional security. Economic strain. Single parents household disproportionately require state support. Culture erosion. Norms around fidelity, male leadership, and intergenerational responsibility weaken. If this structure discontinues, society shifts from intergenerational continuity toward fragmented transactional social units, making traditional family-based civilization harder to sustain. All right. And I'm going to do a video tomorrow speaking about open relationships and how that shit is stupid. Systematic feedback loops. Casual sex and hidden sexual activity, mistrust, men delay or avoid commitment, fewer stable households, cultural and economic instability, cycle reinforces itself, right? Which was the issue that the Victorian era solved. Because now that the women before that, in a more barbaric times in the hunter-gatherer era, men did not invest in women who were sexually promiscuous, because sexually promiscuous women, they caught diseases and stuff. And I'm going to go on that in here. They caught diseases. They produced children for other dudes, and there was a lot of risk dealing with a promiscuous women. The whole village could get fucked up fucking with them. So the Victorian age solved that issue, right? This trend is observable in many Western countries already. Low marriage rates, decline of birth rates among traditional households, rising cohabitation, and divorce. Right? Objective summary. Trend increase, promiscuity decrease, transparency, and normalization of transactional sexual behavior. Effect. Weakens traditional family structures, destabilizes intergenerational continuity, and increases social instability. Conclusion. If unaddressed, the social model that has historically supported civilization, particularly stable traditional families, is at serious risk of collapse, right? Which is what we're doing right now. Causes behind the weakening of traditionalism. Direct risk to men, women, and children. Health risk, STDs, and HIV/AIDS. High risk sexual behavior, increased likelihood of contracting disease. Even asymptomatic infections can affect fertility or long-term health. We can go into what asymptomatic means. Reproductive health complications. Repeated sexual activity with multiple partners can increase the risk of cervical dysplasia, ovarian issues, and uterine infections, sometimes leading to infertility. Damn. Abortions and repeated pregnancies can also cause physical impact. Can also physically impact women. Raising risk of complications in future pregnancies. I think we're seeing that already now. Emotional relational risk, relational instability. Women with high sexual histories are statistically more likely to cheat or divorce. Men exposed to this risk may experience betrayal, trauma, emotional strain, or financial losses, child support, alimony. And we keep telling men that they're not victims. And the reason why they tell men that you cannot be a victim, so you cannot wake up to what's going on and change that situation, right? Cycle of relapse. Promiscuous patterns tend to repeat. Even if women settles down, the likelihood of relapse or attraction to old behaviors is higher. This undermines trust, which is central to traditional family models, right? Because at the head of a traditional family model is the father. If the father cannot trust that woman, or she's just, he's not going to keep invested. He's going to divorce, right? Behavioral influence. Children observe parental behavior. A mother or a father engaged in promiscuity, relational instability, or transactional relationship normalizes this behavior. This can influence children's future relationships, perpetuating cycles of instability. Psychological consequences. Divorce, repeated romantic conflict, or exposure to non-monogamous behavior can cause stress, insecurity, and attachment issues in children. This is science. This is not me making this up. All right. Societal modeling. Children growing up in fragmented and promiscuous households are less likely to adopt traditional values, reducing intergenerational continuity. Erosion of traditional family structures. Even when men can't trust women and women prioritize sexual exploration over family, the traditional male-female complementary model collapses. Fewer stable households, fewer children raised in predictable structured environments. Now remember, a nuclear family is a microcosm of the structure of society. So now, what made America so damn great is because the nuclear family, which was like a miniature patriarchal battery, was driving the force of the structure of America. Right? So now you're removing that structure, you're seeing America collapse in itself right now. Right? Demographic and economic consequences. Lower marriage and fertility rates among traditional households. Higher social support costs for single-parent or fragmented families. Increased social instability with fewer intergenerational caregivers. Right? Loss of sexual transparency. In traditional societies, men can predict a woman's sexual history and potential reproductive risk. Today, with hidden promiscuity and normalized casual sex, men cannot reliably vet partners. Result, men hesitate to commit, delaying marriage or avoiding it altogether. And men are not insecure for that. Stop trying to trick men into being secure with some shit that he knows not for him. A secure man knows what's for him and knows what's not best for him. Simple. Right. Let me say that again. A secure man knows what's best for him. He knows what's not best for him. Normalization of casual sex. Cultural messaging encourages women to explore sexuality freely without consequences. Media and pornography, social media, and platforms like OnlyFans reinforce transactional or performative sexual behavior. Result: the traditional expectations of sexual restraint and investment in one partner is undermined. Economic independence plus cultural shifts. Women's financial independence reduced the necessity of forming stable family units for security, combined with social pressure for self-expression and sexual liberation. This encourages short-term pleasure over long-term commitment. Why the Victorian or traditional model worked: sexual restraint and transparency. Women's reproductive and sexual activity was regulated socially, reducing risk for men. Clear male-female roles. Men provided protection and provision. Women provided care and family continuity. Social oversight. Extended families and communities monitored behavior, reducing risk of relational betrayal or hidden sexual activity. Result: stable, predictable family units that preserve lineage, property, and cultural values. Asymptomatic infection. Let's go into that now, all right? Definition: asymptomatic means a person is affected but does not show noticeable symptoms. So you got women out here that's possibly walking around with STDs, but because they look normal, they're not blowing up in front of your face, they're not coughing, you don't think they got none. A woman could have chlamydia or gonorrhea and feel completely fine. Let me say that again. A woman can have chlamydia or gonorrhea and feel completely fine. She may have no pain, discharge, or discomfort, but the infection is still present. It can cause long-term reproductive issues if untreated. Delayed symptoms. Sometimes symptoms don't appear later after the infection has caused damage, such as scarring of reproductive organs, which can contribute to infertility. Key point: you cannot assume someone is healthy just because she looks or feels fine. This is what you want traditional men to be secure and wifing up. Condoms reduce risk, but do not eliminate it completely. Skin-to-skin STDs like herpes or HPV can still transmit because condoms don't cover all genital areas. Internal infections like chlamydia or gonorrhea in the cervix or uterus can still occur if exposure happens outside the condom's coverage. Woo. Repeated infections. Even if the condoms repeated exposure over time increases cumulative risk of reproductive complications. Reproductive complications. Chronic untreated infections can cause pelvic inflammation disease, scar tissue, infertility, cervical dysplasia, potential cancerous lesions, uterine or ovarian inflammation complications in pregnancy. Reporting. Modern medical literature reports thousands of cases annually linking sexual transmitted infections to infertility. These are well documented in gynecology journals. Bruh. Victorian era, 1837 to 1901. Limited understanding. So this is how people back in these times with no medical advancements or the technology we have today were able to tell who had STDs or not, right? Victorian era, 1837 to 1901. Limited understanding of microbiology and asymptomatic infections. Doctors noticed patterns like repeated miscarriages, infertility, or female weakness, but didn't know the microbial cause. Social solutions: sexual restraint, monogamy, social norms, incidentally reduce exposure to infections even without medical knowledge. I told you the Victorian era was the solution, right? Medieval times, very little understanding of reproductive psychology or sociology or disease mechanisms. Practices like chastity, social oversight, and arranged marriages were cultural methods to reduce sexual risk. Again, effective without knowing why. Home remedies and early medicines often attempted to treat symptoms, but not underlying infections. Key insight: the effectiveness of traditional sexual norms was largely preventative, but by cultural design, not by scientific knowledge. People didn't understand bacteria or viruses, but they intuitively reduced risk. So they may not have known, but they knew based on patterns, uh, miscarriages, that something was wrong. And every time when we contained or held women accountable to a standard, it controlled or reduced those risks, right? Example scenario. Person tests negative for all STDs today. They have sex tomorrow with someone who's infected. They go back for testing the next day. Most tests will still be negative because the infection is too new to detect. This is why doctors always emphasizes retesting after window period for herpes, HIV, chlamydia, or gonorrhea. Sheesh. So, in other words, you can be tested negative. You may not have no STIs or STDs. Have sex with somebody, male or female. Like if I'm a guy, I have no STIs, I'm not gonna fuck a bitch tomorrow. Get tested the next day, it might not show because she gave me something, right? Might get tested next month, and oh shit, I got some kind of chlamydia. That's how serious this is. You're not even gonna tell it right away. Like so, regular testing, bro. Implication for sexual safety. Regular testing reduces risk, but does not eliminate it, especially if someone has sex between tests. Some infections like herpes can be transmitted even if the person is asymptomatic, and testing too soon will miss the infection. This is why condoms plus testing plus partner honesty are combined strategies, but there is no perfect guarantee. STIs do not show up right away after exposure. Even with regular testing, there's always a window period during which a recent infection won't be detected. Ooh. For absolute certainty, you need to wait the full window period after any potential exposure before testing. And mind you, these women out here are busting it down weekly, daily, on regularly. So we know they ain't doing no regular testing, especially with the high STI rates or STD rates amongst the women. Based on the studying of probability versus personal experience. Many people think, I slept around, got tested, and I'm fine, so nothing bad happens to me. This is a sampling bias. People overgeneralize from their own luck and ignore the cumulative risk. STIs and complications are statistical probabilities, not certainties. So even if they avoid consequences in the short term, it doesn't remove the risk. Now, I'm not saying people to be afraid of sex. Sex can be good, but these are just the risk of it, right? Human brains are wired to prioritize immediate pleasure over delayed consequences. Sex is intensely rewarding biologically, don't forget oxytocin. So the immediate reward often outweighs abstract risk in people's mind. For many, the long-term risk of STIs, fertility issues, or rational instability feel distant or improbable, so they ignore them. Culture normalization and messaging. Modern culture glorifies sexual freedom, casual hookups, and multiple partners. Social media dating apps and platforms like OnlyFans reinforce the idea that promiscuity is acceptable and consequence free. Right? Condoms protect everything. Testing every month keeps you safe. If you like sex, you should explore freely, which is what the message is, right? This creates a false sense of invulnerability, despite the science clearly showing residual risk. Lack of education and misunderstanding of biology. Many people don't understand. Windows periods and testing, we just discussed this. Asymptomatic infections and cumulative damage. The long-term reproductive consequences, PID. They assume modern medicine removes all risk, which is not true. Social and psychological rationalization. People often rationalize risk behavior to avoid cognitive dissonance. I want sex. I'm responsible. I'm tested, so I'm safe. Everyone is doing it. I'll be fine. This allows them to feel justified while ignoring objective danger, right? Even in modern medically advanced society, STIs remain a real and often invisible. Condoms and testing reduce, but do not eliminate risk. Culture messaging and human psychology encourage risk-taking despite science. Cumulative long-term consequences, fertility, rational instability, and societal effects are still significant. The takeaway, modern science mitigates risk, but it does not make promiscuity safe. And many people fail to understand this because they confuse probability, luck, and my damn cat just walked across the thing and his tail is puffed up. What's up? Whatever. He just came from outside and shit. All right, so this is hunter gatherers, social structure, 20 to 50 people. Kid-based sexual behavior was heavily monitored by social ties, right? So this is how they dealt with it with the remedies. You can read that. Right? Effective is not because of understanding of germs, but because of societal visibility and small group monitoring. Naturally limited infection spread. So the idea that early stages of human were what's up, man? Like his tail got puffed up. What's up, buddy? Right? High, not because of understanding germs, but because social visibility and small group monitoring naturally limited infection spread. So these were smaller societies, yet they understood promiscuity was dangerous, right? Visual behavior cues, sores, rashes, infertility, chronic illnesses. So the idea that promiscuity was natural in those times was bullshit because there were consequences for it, right? Social context. Large cities, so this is Rome, brothels, high mobility, public baths, sexual promiscuity was common among men, right? So recognition of infections. Doctors like Gellin observed visible symptoms, ulcers, sores, fevers, infertility, and discharge. Wow. Epidemics of venereal disease were recorded. Syphilis arrived later, but gonorrhea and other infections existed. Like they had herbal treatments like mercury and plant-based ointments, ritual purification, banning abstinence from sexual activity during illnesses, social regulations. Elite women were monitored more strictly. Public censure or ostracism was used to limit promiscuity. Effectiveness. Partially, urban density made infections more common, but elite social rules limited the risk for certain classes. So, bro, ancient Rome, medieval Europe, Victorian-like precursors, right? Social control, marriages, chastity, and religious oversight were key. Chronic infertility, miscarriages, genital lesions were observed. Priests, midwives, and local healers noticed patterns of illness linked to sexual activity. Every society, they noticed that when sexual activity was rampant, illnesses took place, right? Uh, you know what the main remedy was that was effective? Social monitoring, families and communities enforced virginity before marriage, widow chastity, infidelity rules. All right. Women are generally more biologically susceptible to STIs than men for several reasons. Exposed mucous membranes, the vagina has a large surface area of mucous tissue, which absorbs pathogens more easily than the male urethra. Asymptomatic infections, women often show fewer early symptoms of infections like chlamydia, gonorrhea, or herpes, which allows the infections to persist longer and cause more complications. Reproductive consequences. Even mild infections in women can lead to PID, right? Men can carry infections, but the direct reproductive impact is often less severe. Men are not immune, but infections are. More symptomatic, painful urinations, visible discharge, which leads to early detection, less likely to cause long-term reproductive damage if treated or noticed early. So, in other words, men is easier to spot in us, and we're not at risk. I'm not saying y'all should go out there and do this shit, but you know, we don't have the high biological risk like the women do. Risk. Elite women were policed for fidelity, but concubines and common women could be exposed to multiple partners, often without protection. Male sexual promiscuity was socially tolerated or even encouraged, while women were restricted to, so women bore the social and biological risk of male promiscuity, right? Men's risk increased under certain conditions, right? So but you got to remember, in the Victorian time, the women were tasked with being sexually chaste, and it wasn't easy for men to be promiscuous with all of the women, right? Men can only be promiscuous with the bitch at the brothel or the whorehouse. He couldn't do that with the lady or the good woman or the lady or the good woman. He only could do that with the brothel worker, right? So that was what it was in the Victorian era. Societies that police homosexual behavior were in part protecting the next generation from reproductive risk. Male promiscuity had less immediate biological consequences, so it was tolerated culturally, but it still contributed to spreading diseases to women, right? This biological asymmetry likely influenced social rules around chastity, marriage, and sexual oversight. Right, so biological reality. Men contribute the seed, women contribute the vessel. Women carry higher reproductive and health risk because pregnancy physically changes their body, consuming nutrients, and sometimes compromising immunity. STIs and infections often affect women more severely and can cause infertility, miscarriages, or chronic illness. Multiple partners compound these risks, not just for women but for society, because infections are transmitted to partners and children. Historically, Historically, uncontrolled female promiscuity posed both biological and social risk. Biological disease spread infertility, maternal and mortality. Social, children born out of wedlock, loss of lineage certainty, weaker family structure. So, like, the last part is what's going on in black culture. You know, children born out of wedlock and shit like that. But yo, this is a serious problem. So the men of those times, they were not oppressing women; they were protecting women from themselves and society at large. Right? This is how many societal rules framed as oppression were actually mechanisms to preserve social and reproductive stability. Marriage, virginity norms, fidelity expectations, concubinage all serve to limit infections, preserve lineage, and protect reproductive investment. Men being controlling of women's sexuality wasn't primarily about power. It was a risk management for survival of the group. You know, because men think about the group, about the mission, right? In Warhammer 40K, there's a demon called Nurgle, right? He spreads plagues, which are highly destructive if uncontrolled. I can make an analogy that promiscuous women in historical societies as vectors of biological and social chaos if unmonitored. Infections equal disease. Hidden sexual networks equals uncontrolled chaos spread, right? Social norms, containment mechanism. Essentially, societies build controls around women not as moral punishment, but as a containment strategy, because the failure to do so could threaten survival, right? Right, so this is just the consequences for men, right? But modern feminism phrases oppression can also be read as historical risk. Mitigation rooted in biology, social survival. Women were biologically higher risk vessels, men are fertilizing agents. The society structure those to protect the reproductive future and social society stability, not just to assert male dominance. Without these controls, both biological and social chaos could and historically did spread disease, illegitimacy, and weaken family units. Demographic instability, right? So, that was that presentation. So, let me see this. I might do a part 2 to this video. Women are naturally promiscuous. Women are naturally selective. Women may adapt to polygynous systems, sharing high-value men, but that's not the same as being promiscuous for its own sake. The natural pattern is monogamy for most, polygyny for elites, hypergamy as the female compass. So they're not promiscuous naturally, right? I might do a whole different show on this one, a whole different live on this one. Yeah, so I'm gonna do a different live on this. All right. Anyway, that was the presentation, right? Um, if we continue down this path, which I believe we are going to, we're going to find out the hard way. And, you know, boy, oh boy, boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Not a black men in the state where they can free and not interfere a threat. This is where the society decides to go and shit in the handbasket. But anyway, this is Kish, Yardi Gamer Nation, or Kish Yardi Views and Vlogs. Hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe. Share me out there. You know, help me to grow my platform. You know what I'm saying? And I'm out.